We are starting a new shir today. Maimar Yud and page Ayin Ches. We're still in the general section of Dorsha ben David Ba, Dorsha ben David Ba Bo, and we are moving ahead. So the Gemara says, Tanya, okay, we're going a little bit right to the Gemara. We spent quite a bit of number of shurim on the inyan of the truth and the and of Tavyume and of Tuvas came into place Kushta. Okay, we're on the next piece of Gemara. Tanya Rabbi Omer, Dorsha ben David Babo, that generation that when David comes, so several bad things are going to be happening. Na'arim yalbinu pnei zakenim. The young will be malbim panim. Malbim panim is to embarrass. They will make their faces go white. Yalbinu pnei zakenim. Is kenim ya'amdu lifnei na'arim, and the zakenim will stand up before the na'arim. It'll be just the reverse the way it's supposed to be. Ubas kama be'ima, and a daughter will arise up against her mother. V'kala be'chamosa, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Upnei ador k'vnei akelef, and the face of the generation is like the face of the dog, as we've had that before. Ve'ena ben misyayish me'oviv, and mizbayish me'oviv, and the son will not be embarrassed in front of his father. That's the brisa of Reb Nahorai. Then there's another brisa, Tanya Reb Nechemya Omer. Dorsha ben David Bo, ha'azus tarbe. Azus. Azus is chutzpah. Right? That'll be a great, that parallels what the Gemara in Sota says. Chutzpah yaski, there will be a tremendous amount of chutzpah. V'hayoker ya'aves. And the yoker, the expenses. We'll see what yoker means. There's different perushim. Yoker could have to do with kavod, right? The word yikor in Hebrew and also means kavod. Yaves will be crooked and perverted. V'agefen yitim pirio, v'ayayim b'yoker. The vine will give its fruit, but wine will still be expensive. V'nefcho kol malchus leminus, and the whole malchus, right, the kingdom, the government, will be changed over to minus. Minus is apikorsis. Vein tochocha, and there won't be a tochocha. Messiah lil Rabbi Yitzchak. This is a proof to what Rabbi Yitzchak said. The Rabbi Yitzchak aim ben David ba shetisapech al malchus leminus. Amar Rava Mikro kulo hofach lovon toharhu. Interesting pasuk. The pasuk is taken from the parsha of Mitzorah. We know that a Mitzoras makes you tameh. The Mitzoras is if the skin is white, is an unnatural white coloration of the skin makes you into a Mitzoras. But there's an interesting halacha in Mitzoras that if the whole body, without exception, turns white, so then it becomes tahor. And this is the mashal that he says here, that which before Mashiach comes, right, the things will be so bad that they'll have to be good, because just like the tzaras, when it turns completely 100% tzaras, you become tar. So the malchus will become completely 100% minus, and then things will straighten out. Okay, we'll see. Right, this is just the Gemara. Moshe is going to spend the next few pages trying to help us understand this Gemara. Hey kilkulim lifnei Mashiach. 5 kilkulim. 5 things that are going to go wrong. Right? Moshe counts them as 5. Hagmara mevared kan 5 kilkulim b'dor shel lifnei Mashiach k'kvi shenevayer elu hachamisha hem lefi seder mesuyam. And he says that there's a seder. This is not just a random collection of kilkulim, of things that are going to be wrong, right? But they have a seder. L'Reb Nahorai, Reb Nahorai is the first brisa. Achamisha hem ne'arim yalbinu pnei zakenim. The young will embarrass the old. Zkenim yamdu lifnei da'arim. The Zkenim will stand before the Arim. Bas kam v'ima v'kal v'chamosa. A daughter against her mother and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Pnei ador ke'apkeleb ve'ena ben misyais me'oviv. Okay. Reb Nechemia gam ken chamisha dorim. V'lididei azus tirbe. There'll be a lot of azus. Ve'yoker yaves. The yoker will be perverted. Ve'agefen yitem pirio v'yayim beyoker. The vine will give its fruit and the wine will be expensive. V'nefchol kol malchus leminus. Ve'ein tochecha. Okay. Seder. So the first thing, before we get into the actual lists and what the difference between them is, differences are, and etc. So Rabbi is going to give us some background, right, about what these different kilkulim correspond to in the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. As follows. Dalid minos, okay, now Rabbi is going to give us some very fundamental knowledge that everybody should be familiar with. You can call it the most elementary type of Kabbalah, the Yesodos of, not Kabbalah, the Yesodos of how HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. Dalid midos ben hagas ha'olam. There are 4 midos in the way God runs the world. Right? Chagat, that's Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes. Those are the 3 midos, the 3 spheros, the 3 midos. V'malchus, and the malchus, right, which is the last of the midos. Dalid ragle hamerkava. These are the 4 legs of the chariot. Okay, what does that mean? Kemoshe anu yodim, as we know, ikre hamidos shel yodam HaKadosh Baruch Hu es ha'olam. What are the ikre midos through which HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, controls the world, guides the world? Mitchalkim lechesed gevura v'tiferet. Shehem keneged gimel ha'avot. Chesed mitzad yamin keneged Avraham. Chesed is on the right side, corresponds to Avraham. Din mitzad small keneged Yitzchak. V'tiferet be'emsa. He mirat hayosher. Yosher makbil Yaakov. Hanikra Yisrael v'Yeshurun. So Yaakov's name has the word, right? Both names that are given to Yaakov is Yashar, Yisrael, and Yeshurun. Right? Yeshurun is also one of the names of Yaakov Avinu. And it's interesting, Avinu's original name of Yaakov is the word Okov, the heel or something, which is not so straight. Right? But Yaakov is the Midah of Tiferes, and that's Yisrael, right, which is the Yosher, which is the straight path, which we'll see. So we'll try to explain it. We'll see how Moshe explains it, and then we'll see if we can try to understand it. Milvadam, besides these 3, yesh od Midah revi'is. There's the 4th Midah, Midat HaMalchus HaMakbila LeDavid HaMelech. It's the Midah of Malchus, which corresponds to David HaMelech. As it's brought down later in the Gemara in our sugya. David HaMelech bikesh hiagidu Elokei David. David HaMelech asked that when we daven, we should say Elokei David ke'ein she'omrim Elokei Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov. And we say Elokei Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Right, so David made a request that he also be included, because David understood that his midah is an essential element of the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. Okay, Uma shenogea l'didan. What's relevant for us right now? Hatam sheDavid bikesh yomer Elokei David ze mitzad shehu shayach leikar hamidos shebehem HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma'ayin hagolam. Because David HaMelech is shaykh to the ikar, to those midos. V'hu haregel haravi shel hamerkava. And this is called in Chazal, different sources call this the 4th leg of the chariot. Okay, so This is here on the footnote. He quotes the Gemara. So let's see in the Gemara. Right. Here in the footnote, he quotes the Gemara on the bottom of the page. Aleph Sanhedrin Kuzayin Abad Aleph. This is later on in the parak. We're on the Tzadik Zayin, and this is on the Kuv Zayin. 10 daf later. Amar Rav. So here the Gemara is brought in a different context, but this is how it's related to us. So the Gemara says, "Le'olam al yavi adam atzmo lidei nisayon." A person should never bring himself to be tested by Hashem. Don't ask to be tested. Sharei David Melech Yisrael, hevi atzmo lidei nisayon v'nichshal. He brought himself to nisayon and he failed the test. He said, not fair. Right? Avram Yitzchak Yaakov mentioned Elokei, right? But not Elokei David. Omar, so Baruch Hu answers to him, Inhu minsuli, they were tested by me. Minsu for the word nisayon, they were tested by me. Vi'at lo minsisli. But you weren't tested, so you don't get to that schus of being called Elokei David. Omar lefanav b'Yerushalayim b'chaneni v'naseini. Test me. Shneimar b'chaneni Hashem v'naseini. It says, until him, test me. Omar, so God said, Minsin Aloch, I will test you. Ve'avidna milsa b'hadoch d'lidu lo. I will do something special for you, something that I didn't do. D'lidu lo aditinu. I didn't tell them in advance that I was going to test them. I sprung the test on them. Vilu ano komodana, I'm telling you, I'm informing you, the minsinaloch b'dvar erva. You will be tested with a matter of erva.
Wow.
Yad vayhileis ha'erev vayokam David me'al mishkova. David got up from his bed, and Omar Rabbi Yehuda shofach mishkova shel layla mishkova shel yom v'nisal memenu halacha. Okay, I'm not going into the detail there, but he, right, David HaMelech, right, messed up. Okay. But anyway, so for our purposes, right, but the lemaisa of it is that even though, despite the fact that David HaMelech did not pass the test, and he was nichshal with Bathsheba, however, he did tshuva, and according to our traditions, David HaMelech indeed is the fourth regel of the Merkava. As he wanted to be, despite the fact that he didn't pass the test. Okay, so the Merkava of the chariot, which carries, right, which is God's chariot, so to speak, which he rides in, has 4 legs, 4 wheels, call it, whatever picture, and the 3 are Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and the 4th is David. Okay, and we'll see exactly what each one of those. What the function of each one of those is. Yeah, we know that. We know that just from life that in order for a table to stand, for instance, you have to have at least 3 legs. Right? There is a two-legged table won't stand. Right? But a 3-legged table can stand very well. Right? It's stable enough. But a 4-legged table is even better. Right? A 4-legged has 4 solid points. And that's what David was. Okay, let's see what this means for us. Okay, so that's just the story of how David is. And indeed, right, if we pay attention, you see that David is the only person mentioned in our tefillah, in Shemona Esrei, other than the 3 of us, right? We have a special prayer. It's Semach David Avdecha Meir Tatzmiach. A prayer for that the kingdom of David should be there, right? There's a bracha in the brachas of the Haftorah, Baruch Atah Hashem Magen David. We say, right, instead of say Magen Avraham and our tefillos, but there is a bracha the Chazal made, which we say when we read the Haftorah, Baruch Atah Hashem Magen David. So David is reckoned among the main foundations of the world of the Hanhag of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so let's just see. What does Avram represent? Yitzchak, Yaakov, and where does David fit in? And then once we understand that, so then we'll be able to get back to our Gemara and see how each of these kilkulim that I mentioned in the Gemara is a kilkul in a certain midah, the midah of Avram, the midah of Yitzchak, the midah of Yaakov, the midah of David, as we will see. Okay, that's where we're headed. So let's start. Chesed v'din, ahava v'yira. Okay. What are chesed and din? Right? So those are right, the first two. Right? We call it chesed gvura, right? But din and gvura go together, and ava and yira parallel chesed and din. Okay, we serve Hashem with ava, we serve Hashem with yira. Inyanim elu nitbaru b'dvareinu b'pamim rabot. So Moshe says we've talked about this lots of times. B'lachein nazkir otam b'kitzur. Here we're just going to speak about them briefly, without a lengthy explanation. And we who not necessarily zocha to hear all the many times Moshe spoke about it, we'll have to try to figure it out the best we can. Kav hachesed hu tzad ahava shebekomat adam. So let's have some definitions. There's a kav of chesed. There's a line. There's a system of chesed. A part of us has chesed. A part of the human being has chesed. It's the ahava that a person has. What does that mean? Kemoshe katuv, Avraham ohavi. Right? Abraham, my beloved, or who loves me. Ubekochot hanefesh. So what when we talk about a person who has this midah, what does it mean to have this midah of ahava, this midah of chesed? Zemofia kitchunat hahitpashtut. This is the characteristic of expansive. Ba adam ohev v'rotzel litchaber v'litachel im olam kulo. This is the midah that a person loves and wants to be connected, to become one with the whole world. Kol ha'olam yitchaber alav. A person senses that I don't want to be alone. I want to be connected with all people. I want to be connected with everybody. Right? This is something that I need. I need connection. Right? A person, right? Every again, there are people who are more noted to this kav, and there's more people more noted to the other kav. But it's something which is there in human beings, right? And that is the need, the desire to have connection with other people, or with God, right? But with other people. That's the midah of ahava. L'umata, in contrast, midat hadin hi b'tnuah fucha. It's the opposite movement. Midat bitul v'retiah. It's the midah of being mevatel. Mevatel means I don't need things that are outside of me. Right? The opposite. In other words, the ahava is I feel I need a connection with things outside of me. Right? I can't be self-sufficient. Right? I'm missing things unless I'm also connected with things outside of me, with people outside of me. But there's a midah that says, no, I don't need other people. I can, right? Adarabba, I'm more choshev. I have enough inner meaning, enough inner identity that I'm very happy. I'm happy to be by myself. I'm happy to not be connected to other people. Right? Other people kind of get in my way, right? And have as little as to do with other people as I can. I don't need those connections. Those are the kind. That's bitul ritia. Ritia means to jump back from something, to nirta, right? To hold back. Ubechochot hanefesh adam mitkanes leatzmo. The person comes within himself, right? Withdraws within himself. V'lo me'unyan b'shaychut v'chibur. And he's not interested in connected and being connected. Some gvul, and he puts a boundary. Beino uvein hametziut shechutza lo. Okay, so there's, as we all know, there's extroverts, there's introverts, there's all kinds of people, but these are midos that exist, and these are also midos that exist in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is manhig the world, sometimes with a midah of Ava, and sometimes with the midah of din, of yira, right? And we have to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in both ways, and he relates to us in both ways. Sometimes the midah of Ava, right, is right. There's a sense of connectedness between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and sometimes there's a sense of distance, and we have to sometimes express our connection to him, and sometimes we have to express our awe and our fear and our becoming reticent and moving back and withdrawing. Right? And those are all parts of. Right? These are different things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his parts of him, which he brought into the world. Right? Okay. Elokei Avraham means that right, Avram was the one who brought this midah into the world, because Avram was the Isha Chesed. So then, through him, the Chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu manifested himself into the world, and through Yitzchak, the midah of Gvura manifested itself in the world, because this is what their personnel is represented. And so that's, we all know people who are, we know people who are extremely extroverted, and they need people, and they always want people, and they want to be connected with as many people as they possibly can. And this is, they see their success. And we have introverts who see success, a successful day is, it has little to do with as many people as I possibly could have a little bit to do with. Right? And that's different, that's those things. Then he says, chesed v'din, right? Mayim ve'esh. Right? So he just is expanding the idea, helping us understand how these things, and these are represented by these two forces of nature, water and fire. In terms of the physical reality, right? What represents them is hamayim ve'esh. Hamayim b'tiv'am mitpashtim. Water spreads. Right? Okay. V'chein kol chibur naseh al yedei mayim. Right? To connect two things, you need water. What does that mean? Right? If you want to bake bread, you want the flour to be connected, right? The little grains of flour to be connected to each other so that they will form bread. You got to put water in. Right? Water, right, binds things together. Right? U'b'darchei ha'hanaga, hamayim hem hanaga shel shefa v'chesed. The flow, right? The flow of things coming. We view HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We talk about shefa, and we translate shefa as a flow, right? As an overflowing. That's the water, right? That's the midah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, right? And in the world, mayim represents that. Umeidach, on the other hand, teva ha'esh lehafrid, right? Right? The nature of fire is to separate things, right? Because when you burn something, right, it disintegrates. It turns into ash, right? You could have something which is a whole thing. You take a piece of wood, a piece of paper, whatever it is that you're burning, and you burn it, and it falls apart. It doesn't, right? The fire, right, it destroys and burns things apart. Okay. Right? This he quotes, right? And the bottom, I just want to see in the footnote, this is the Bir Hagrol Tikunei Zohar, right? So the Gra speaks this out. Demayim darkan lihit dabek. Right? Water sticks things together, right? Pulls things together. V'chol dibuk kigon kemach lasot ifso mitdabek b'mayim. Anything that you need to be connected, joined together, like the flour to make it into a dough, is with water. Veish darkol itpared. Shekol davar shenisraf mitpared. V'chol davar lach mitdabek. If something is wet, so then it'll stick to you. V'yavesh mitpared. And things that are dry are separate from you. Okay, when you all sweat it up, so your clothes stick to you, right? Okay, because the water, that's midabek. And when you're not, if not, then everything is separate. So back on top of the page there, ubedarche ha'anaga, koach hadin poel churban. The koach of din is what brings about churban, destruction. Ki b'loshan hakodesh Korban umilashon yovesh, chorev. Chorev is another word for dryness, right? Okay. And that's korban. Korban is the destruction because what was previously held together as a single entity, right, becomes separated. V'lashon yichom, v'lashon chom, chareva or charvonei kayetz. These are different expressions of heat and dryness. Shehem tolos eish, and these are all products of fire, right? Heat, dryness, right? V'akodim baruch hu, right? Mani get olam b'shtei midot elu. Mitzad echad hu mashpia shefa v'chesed, umitzad sheni richuk histalkut v'hester. Kodesh Baruch Hu, right, has both midos. Right? There's a midah of hashpos, shefa, v'chesed, and on the other hand, sometimes we feel that Kodesh Baruch Hu is distant. He's removed himself, right? And we have to, and we recognize that these are two different modes of hanhaga of Kodesh Baruch Hu. Right? Sometimes there's a hanhaga that we feel is chesed, right, mamish, and sometimes we feel why. Lama Hashem talim einecha. Why do you taster al taster panecha? You're hiding your face, right? And we feel a hester panim, right? The Chumash says, "Anochi haster panai," says that I will hide my face. Right? So there's an Indian of hester panim, and then there's an Indian of gilui of right? Yisa Hashem panav elecha. Okay, so those are two midos. Those are the first two. So that's keneged Avram and keneged Yitzchak. Lu'umat shtei midot yisodiot elu, right? In contrast, or right, to these fundamental midos, yesh midah shlishit hanikret tiferet. There's a third midah which is called tiferet, v'hi midato shel Yaakov. Different names are given to it, but the midah of tiferet, right? We call it the midah of emes, titain emes liYaakov. Right? Hatiferet. So first of all, he said like this: Hatiferet shayechet lemarechet hakavod. Marechet is shayich to the system of kavod. Kloshon hakatuv al bigdei kuna, as the pasuk says about the bigdei kuna, lechavod v'letifaret. They go together. Ki hamitpaer hu misha mekabel kavod. There is tiferet, mitpaer, somebody who is glorified, beautified, is the one who receives the kavod. Okay, so tiferet is, what is tiferet? What is this kavod? What is this? What is the system? 1 second. Ubekavod mishamshim yachad shtei hamidot hayesodiyot shel ava v'yira. Kavod, right? You have a combination of these two midos of ava and yira. The mitzad echad, right? Okay, that's a very important thing because it should be true. We should be able to feel it, right? The mitzad echad hakavod ma'orer teshuka lechibur v'kirva. If you have kavod for somebody, that arouses within you a desire for connection with that person. Umeiduch, and from the other side, kalul bekavod gam hargasha shel richuk umora. In the kavod, there is also a sense of distance and fear. Ucheriita begamar bekedushin. Toner abonon ezu mora ve'eza kibur. Mora. What is it? It says there's two mitzvahs in the Torah. One of the mitzvahs of the Torah is kabed esavicha v'esimecha, and the other one is ish imo v'aviv tiro. And the Gemara defines what are the two things, right? So here we're talking about the mora, right? So eza mora is mora, fear. Lo omed bimkomo, you don't stand in his place. V'lo yoshev bimkomo, you don't sit in his place. Lo soter et dvarav, and you do not contradict his words. V'lo machrio. And you don't even say that he's right? Meaning, it's such a double pasha that your father is always right. Right? Whatever, you can't. You don't have an opinion about your father's opinion, right? That's not covered, right? Right. Kibud. What is kibud? Machil or mashke. right? Umalbish, umachase, right? You feed them and you give them to drink and you clothe them, you cover them, machnis umotzi, you take them in and you take them out. Those are, in other words, kavod is basically what you do for your father, for your mother, right? You mechabe them, you give them what they need, you help them in their old age, etc., etc. And mora is that fear that you have, that distance that you have to have. It must have a distance to the object of your kavod. And that's what, and so that's the combination that we said, okay, right, there's right, and sometimes if you're Zocha, I've had that sense, some of my Rabbeim, this cover that on the one hand, I love being around them and having a chance to talk to them and become connected to them. That connection was very important to me. But on the other hand, there was a yira, there was a distance. You didn't just walk over and just say, and pull down all the barriers. The distance was there, and the reticence was there, and the fear, the hesitancy to push back the boundaries, to become overly familiar. Those are things that today not necessarily so much in place. Right? As my experience, I've been teaching for a long time, and I think the more and more the fear is gone. This is not good. Well, certainly with certain people. That's the thing. Right? Right. Once, very long time ago, one of my wise teachers said, "What's the difference between an American and a European?" He says, an American wants to be liked. A European wants to be respected. This is, and that's there's a lot of truth to that, right? True, Misha, you're a European, is that? Okay. I won't put you on the spot, but anyway, but all the rest of us are Americans, so we're born in America. Anyway, so that's what he's talking about. So that's the third midah. The third midah is right the ability to right, and again, and it's an ability to choose the appropriate relationship, right? To be able to know when to exercise one, when to exercise both. If a person is an extrovert without any boundaries, so then there's something wrong with him, right? Then he's going right. If a person is an introvert without any connection with other people, so there's something wrong with him. You have to know when should I exercise this midah, when should I exercise that midah, what are the different midas? Just like a Kodesh Baruch Hu makes decisions. When is he going to relate to us with the midas of Ava, of Chesed? When is he going to relate to with midas Adin? Right? There's an appropriate thing. Okay, so he says, Ve'elu hagimel, these three, heim hamidot shel hagadol hagibor vanora. Right? That's the first thing we start every Shmona Esrei with. Hakel, right? We're describing HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the God, but the adjectives for the God is Gadol, Gibor, Nora. Gadol is Chesed, Gibor is Gevura, is Din, and Nora, right, is the midah of Yaakov Avinu. And it says Yaakov Avinu said in Parashas Vayetze, right, in the dream, Manora Hamakom Hazeh, right? How Nora. Right? So Nora is right that mix. It's feared, but it's awesome. Let's say the awesomeness, the yiras haromimus of that Yaakov Avinu felt, and that was connected the third. Shebahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu manhig et haolam, dehainu, right? Ha'itpashtut, right? Being expansive. Histalkut, being removed, the yirat haroimimut hakolelet shneim, and this fear of romimus, right, of the exaltedness of God, which includes both of them. And this is the three midos of milva. So now malchus. So where does David HaMelech come in? Right. Malchus is kavod. Milvad gimel elu yeshna hanaga revi'it. Shehi midas hamalchus. Okay. There's a midah of the Hanhaga Revi'is, which is the midas hamalchus, which we'll read what he says, and maybe we can add a word of explanation, but let's see. Vihi. Etzem hakavod ha'oleh min habriya. When you look at the creation, right, the creation, right, God's creation, the world, right, it broadcasts, right, kavod. It broadcasts grandeur, right. Okay, it's right. V'amidah hazoti tachlit kol hamidot. This midah is the tachlis. It's the goal of all the midot. So Kloshon Mishnah, right? Right. So kol masha bora kodesh baruch hu ba'olam lo bora lechvodo. V'akavod, right? Everything kodesh baruch hu created he created for his kavod. V'akavod shayach lemelech. Right? Kavod and malchus go together. K'de'isa b'Rambam, right? As Rambam says in Hilchos Melachim, kavod gadol nohagim b'melech. You have to have, the king has to be given a great amount of honor. Umesimin lo ema v'yira b'leiv kol adam, and there should be placed fear and awe in the heart of every person. Shemar som tasim, as the pasuk says in Chazal Darshan, you should place what does it mean? You should som tasim, place the king over you. Shetehei emato alacha, that his fear, his awe should be over you. V'zeh tachlis. This is the purpose of it, is to create a world where the kingdom of God will be revealed. Because the purpose of all of creation is the revelation of the Kavod Hashem, which comes out of the Bria. Right. So again, so here we have to try to understand a little bit. Always remember the clearest. I think I've mentioned it before. The clearest picture that I remember learning about the Midas HaMalchus was in the Sefer of Shimshon Pinkus about the Shabbos Malkusa. Right, he talks about, because Shabbos is considered to be the seventh day, and the seventh day is the seventh midah, the midah of Malchus. So Shabbos and Malchus go together, and Rav Shimshon Pinkus gave a very, very simple mashal, right? A very simple description. What is the midah of Malchus? He says you have a table, right? So a table has, what is a table? A table has four legs and a what do we call it in English? I don't know. Hebrew we call it a plata. I don't know. A board.
Tabletop.
A tabletop. A board, right? A board that goes across the four legs, right? So what is it? So you can say, what when you look at a table, what do you see? I see, a tabletop and a leg and a leg and a leg and a leg, and that's what I see. No, when you put it all together, right, it creates something new. Right? It creates a table. Table is greater than the sum of its parts, right? It's not just four legs and a tabletop. It's a table, right? Because now you've made something new, and that didn't exist. The table doesn't exist until you take the five different parts and make it into a table, right? That's a mashal, right? And it's a very good mashal. Right? It's a simple mashal. It's a very good mashal, right? But you could take, right. But so when you see the malchus is when you put all of the beautiful things together, right? And you could say, for instance, you can say a piece of music. The piece of music has this meter and that meter. It has, strength, and it has beauty, and it has harmony, and it has right. And you can describe all the different pieces, right? All the different tricks or different methods that the composer put into creating this piece of music. But at the end of the day, nothing speaks like the piece of music itself. You hear it, and you see it all together as one big thing, right? And then, that's the malchus of the thing. The malchus of the thing, or any work that we have, any creation that is there, that's the malchus, right? You read a great book, right? Oh, you say the book has good dialogue, it has good descriptions, it has good, etc. Nice language, right? Good plot. It's all there. But the book is more than the plot and the language and the dialogue and the things that it says. It's a creation, right? So the Havdil, so Baruch Hu created the world. So you take a person, right? You see a human being, you see a person that's a tiferet adam. Right? Imagine the most glorious person that you can imagine or you've ever seen. The person who really, this is what a human being should look like. Right? Okay. And what is a human being? He has this, he has this meter, he has that meter, but you're not describing, the individual different traits that he has that make up the greatest, the wonderful human being that he is. The wonderful human being is what he is, right? Putting everything together, looking that, I have a Tzelem Elokim, I have somebody that's a very, very special person, right? Very special, very, stands out as in his specialness, not because of the details. He has all the details, but that's it. So that's the kavod that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted, and that's what David HaMelech represented. David HaMelech represents, and we'll see that's the idea, because the purpose of the Malchus is to bring everything together. And Moshe has quoted before, we've seen another context. The Rambam says that the whole point of the Melech is to unite the Jewish people, to unite the world. Right? That's to bring unity. That's what Malchus is. Right? That's going to be the Melech HaMashiach. We'll see. Right? Right? There'll be unity. In other words, to take all of the different parts of things and to show and bring them all together, make them all a part of one big thing. Right? That's the unity, which is the Malchus. And so that's the midah of David HaMelech. David HaMelech had that ability to take all of the different parts and manifest itself. What is the shleimus of a person? Yeah. I saw that. I'm reminded that the sefer by a very well respected Rosh Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. His name was Reb Leib Mintzberg. I mentioned it maybe once in a while. He wrote the Svarim Ben Melech, right? But when he has an essay there about Tehillim, he says, "What is Tehillim? What's the greatness of Tehillim?" Right? He says you can learn all of the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch. You got to do this, you got to do that, but only from Tehillim do you see what a Jew really is. Right? How is a Jew supposed to react? How is a Jew supposed to behave? How is a Jew right? In times of joy, in times of sadness, in times of trouble, in times of this. This is what it's supposed to look like, right? You don't know how a Jew is supposed to look like. Either you can see a Jew or until you, let's say, for Tehillim, right? Just from reading a description of how you're supposed to behave like this or like that, that doesn't show you the totality of the thing. Saying that's, and of course, what I mean to say is that David HaMelech wrote Tehillim. Right? That's the shleimus, that's the malchus, that's how everything comes together to manifest HaKadosh Baruch Hu's covenant in the world. Okay, so that's what so far that we've had introductions. Now Rav Moshe is going to come and go back through the Gemaras that we said and show how the kilkulim that we have, that we were listed in the Brisa by Rav Nehorai and Rav Nechemia, right? Each one of those kilkulim corresponds to one of these midos. Okay, and one of the midos that we've been talking about. Okay? And that's, as far as I could tell, this is, I looked in the Maharal and the Maharsha, and the standard commentaries on the Agaritas, and they don't say these ideas, whereas I know Rav Moshe's original ideas. I don't know what other sources he might have used, but anyway, certainly not in the most standard sources. Yeah. So what does he say? Kilkol b'chol midos hanaga. Das Reb Nechemia. Ubazeh yevo aru derei Gemara shebedor achron yeh kilkol ve'ikar midos hanagas ha'olam. The kilkol will be in these things, right? These, the chesed, the din, right? They'll be messed up, and they'll be completely distorted, and it won't be. They'll be there, but in opposite way from they'll be in a kind of way like the negative of a photograph. Right? They'll be there, but just the opposite of the way they're supposed to look. Right? We'll go through them one by one. Aleph. Ha'azut tirbeh. There will be lots of azut. What is azut? Chutzpah. So Moshe says an interesting thing, if you think about it, but I think we can understand it. Ze ivut shel midas hachesed. Azut, right? Azut, again, we translated chutzpah, it means, right, he says it's the perversion of midas hachesed. Right? Although let's read what he says, and I'll try to explain it because based on other things that Moshe said. Instead, right, of that hitpashtut, that expansion of ava and chesed, which is the way things are supposed to be, yesh hitpashtut shel azus. There's an expansion of azus. It's called much chutzpah. כי בדור האחרון של לפני המשיח, כל אחד שם את עצמו במקום שלא צריך להיות. People put themselves in places where they shouldn't be in the first place. והחיבור של בני אדם כלפי חוץ, and the connection that people have, right, with people outside of them, יהיה בעזות ולא בחסד. In other words, azus, where Moshe has spoken about in another context, right, azus is the midah that what people say to you, right, doesn't make an impression on you. Right? In other words, the Moshe said it, right? The Gemara talks about azus, right? Azus metzach, right? The azus of the forehead. Right? Why the azus of the forehead? Because when you talk to somebody, right, and you look at their face, you can see how they're reacting to you. Right? Yeah. They're smiling, they're frowning, they're confused, whatever it is. You look at a person's face, and you can see how is he reacting to you. You can see whether your words are being accepted, whether they're not being accepted, right? But when you look at his forehead, you don't see anything. Right? In other words, if you cover the face from the eyes down, and just I'm talking to you, and all I see is your forehead, I have no clue about what's happening, what impression, how you're accepting my words, right? It's just your forehead, right? Because the forehead doesn't have any signs of indication, right? So that's what azus is. So azus means that when I connect with the world, I connect in the world where whatever you have to say as a person doesn't interest me. It's not important to me. Right? I'm just pushing my way. So my relation with you is not a relationship where there is a mutual receiving of messages. Right? In a normal ahava, chesed relationship, so when I speak to you, I see how you're reacting, and then first of all, I adjust what I'm saying based on what you're acting. And you speak to me, right? And each one of us, right, is adjusting to each other because we want to have a real connection with each other. But let's say you're speaking to some, you're negotiating a business deal with some guy who doesn't care about you at all, right? And all he wants to is just push his way and get his way, right? There's no connection. There's a connection. He's talking to you. He's right, but instead of coming to a connection of the minds, there's a pushing away, right? So that's there's an expansion. I'm expanding myself. I'm expanding myself to move into your territory. I'm expanding myself to talk to you. I'm expanding myself to have an interaction with you. But it's not the chesed. It's the azus. Right? I'm reacting to you with azus. Right? When you talk to somebody with azus, so that's the opposite of it's a kind of way of relating, right, to others outside of you, but it's not the way it's supposed to be. That's the perversion. The real way it's supposed to be is to relate, to try to feel the other person, to try to understand the other person, to try to modulate what you're saying so it will be received by the other person, right, in a way which is going to make an impression. And that's the right. That's the so that's what I believe, how we can understand that when he says azus, that's a perversion of chesed. It's an expansion of yourself, but just the opposite. Then he says about hayoker ya'aves, right? So Perish Rashi. So here, well, let's see how Rashi explains it. Shelo yechabdu ze et ze. So Rashi translates the word yoker, right? Yokar kavod. Okay, yoker Rashi explains is kavod. Okay, and it's interesting that in the biblical Hebrew of the earlier Sfarim, right, the word they only have the word kavod, but it's introduced in later, like in Megillas Esther, right? The word yikar is used a lot to mean kavod, right? And the word, so yikar, right, it means kavod. Okay? It's a translation, or it's a synonym for kavod, right? So yikar, so shelo yechabdu zeh zeh. So one thing is, people will not respect each other. Lishna achrina, another Rashi says a second lashon, hayoker yavet. This is frightening. Mechubad shebahen, the people who are mechubad, who are honored, yehei avtan v'ra'ei ramai, will be a crooked and perverse person. Okay, that's frightening. Okay, because to me it's very frightening, right? Because it says that even the people that receive kavod for being whatever they are, even for being Talmidei Chachamim or something, will be be'etzem ramayim. Will be deceitful people. So he says, what is this? This is the opposite, the kilkul of the third midah of tiferet. The Pirish Aleph Shel Rashi, according to Rashi's first shot, lo yemitziyut shel kavod klal. There won't be such a thing as kavod, right? Everybody will be mezalzel in everybody else. Okay? And that's what you see a lot of that today, right? Nobody pays enough attention to think about what is the other. Maybe the other person has some value. Maybe there is something about him that deserves respect, even if I disagree with him. Right? Maybe I should still relate to him with some degree of civility, of respect, talking to him, right? Just trying to communicate with him. That doesn't exist. Well, the Perish Beis, according to the second, the Nichbad himself will be a deceitful person. Hahepech mimidas hayosher Yeshua Yaakov. So, without going into any more current history, we'll leave it at that. Okay. 3. V'agefen yitem. We'll try to see if we can finish that. I don't think we'll finish. We'll see. V'agefen yitem pirio v'yayin b'yoker. V'etzem ein lecha davar shoel lebrocha kamo yayin. Yayin is the thing which is the most appropriate thing to have a blessing. Ke'ein shematzino shemeshir al yayin chol kos brocha yishol yayin. Kos brocha is wine. Right? You have to have wine to make a brocha. Okay. Ulam kampirish Rashi v'agefen yitem pirio v'afal pikein yayin b'yoker. There won't be a bracha in the fruit itself. Right? Okay. The vine will produce fruit, but the fruit will not be a blessed fruit. Hainu. Shebe'etzem hashpa'ah ba milamayla yeriboy. Aval lo tiyeh bracha b'pri atzmo. V'adrabah. B'mokom habracha tovo klola. Right, in the plate, instead of bracha, there will be a klola. There'll be a curse. You'll take this nice grape that grew on the tree, and you'll squeeze it, and almost nothing comes out. And instead of how much is supposed to come out of a grape, I don't know how much is supposed to come out of a grape, but it's X amount, right? You'll get, much less than that. There's a klola in the fruit, right? V'zeh, okay, here's an interesting chiddush. V'zeh kilkul anogel midos shel Yitzchak. Ki hu shoresh habracha ba'olam. Okay. Again, we're talking about the midas hadin, but the midas hadin is the shoresh habracha, and I'll try to give a little bit of an explanation of that too. Shebo nemar, because as it says in Parshas Toldos, right? Next week's parsha, not this week, but the following. Vayevarcheu Hashem. It says that God blessed Yitzchak. V'chein yesh barashi v'avorecha and in Parshas Lech Lecha zeu she'omrim Elokei Yitzchak. Okay, so what's the connection between Yitzchak, right, and bracha? Is, I think, is like this: is because the midas hadin is what provides the kli for the chesed. Right? In other words, the bracha for right. It says that the bracha requires a kli. Right? So Yitzchak was so Yitzchak Avinu was the kli who could be makabel the bracha. Right? It wasn't the source of the bracha himself, but he was able to receive bracha. Right? And because Baruch Hu blessed him, and so the midah of that's the midah of Yitzchak is to have an abundance of bracha, right? Based because we look at it in a slightly different way, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? It always wants to give bracha, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is tov u'meitiv. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's fundamental attribute is to give shefa and bracha to the world. The problem is more in our ability to be makabel. Right? We can't be makabel, so we can't be makabel, so the bracha stops. Right? Okay. Like we learned in yesterday's haftarah, right? With the Eshes Hanovi, right? That as long as there were kalim for to have the oil, so she's able to pour more and more oil, right? As many kalim as there were, right? That's as much bracha as there were. But as soon as she finished the kalim, there were no more kalim, so the flow stopped, right? No more bracha, right? So we have to be the midah of Yitzchak is the midah of being the kli to mekabel the bracha, and that's and the grape is not going to have the bracha, right? The grape there won't be the kalim to have the bracha. V'zeu b'pirish harishon barashi, right? U'b'pirish hasheni pirish lishnachrina shu kulam rodfim achar hayayin u'mishtakrein u'misyaker hayayin. The wine's going to be expensive, right? Because everybody's drinking too much. Afal pisha rov yayin bola. There'll be lots of wine, but lots of drunks. He says, "V'lai nachzor levayir zeh." Maybe we'll come back to explain it. I haven't seen that Ramesh did come back to explain it, but so I don't know if that's the Matthias today, because today, Baruch Hashem, you go to the supermarket, there's tons of bottles of wine on the shelf, and so there's plenty of wine. But whatever, something will be affected the bracha. Okay, we'll stop here for today, and we'll try to finish up this year on next week, Bezrat Hashem. Right. The plan is to skip Maimer Yud Aleph and to do Maimer Yud Beis. That's the plan. Maimer Yud Aleph is, as they say, above my pay grade. I can't figure out what he's talking about. So I will defer. We'll skip that way, but Mirza Hashem will finish this one on next Sunday. Okay, Shkoyach. Even though Jory didn't ask any questions today, but okay, Seder. Next week, so save them up for next week, Jory. Okay. Okay. The Seder. Okay, thank everybody for joining, and the Seder.
Thank you.
Hashem next week. Be well.